As we reflect on 2020 and look to the new year, we must not ignore the stories that history will remember about this time period. For this project proposal, I will focus on food insecurity and the growing racial achievement gap. Recently, Feeding America released a report that California will be seeing the highest increase in the number of people living in food insecure households, adding a projected 2.2 million for a total number of 6.4 million households that will be food insecure. Long-term accessibility to healthy foods is different than just a one-off project. By focusing on food sovereignty, we are thinking about the long-term benefits for our community instead of planning a quick fix. But what is food sovereignty? Valerie Seagrass from the Muckleshoot tribe talks about why food sovereignty matters for her tribe in this TEDx clip.
When my ancestor Pat Keenum met with other tribal leaders and Governor Isaac Stevens to sign the Treaty of Point Elliott, he was the very first person to speak. And the very first thing that he spoke to was access to foods. We wanted access to all of the game, the fish, the shellfish, the roots, the berries, and the cedar tree. And so at the very moment when my ancestors were defining sovereignty, it is clear that the first priority was access to foods. So at the core of tribal sovereignty is food sovereignty. And this is significant because we know that our traditional foods are a pillar of our culture and that they feed much more than our physical bodies. They also feed our spirits. And this is because they're a living link with the land and with our legacy, helping us to always remember who we are and where we come from.
Now, on to the achievement gap. Before distance learning, Native American students were already experiencing lower graduation rates. Like other groups, digital learning has exacerbated that achievement gap. COVID has been devastating for many families this year, among other social injustices that have been brought to the forefront. Curtis Bristow, a teacher of Indigenous research and Maori culture advocate, discusses how Indigenous knowledge can contribute positive change in this TEDx clip.
And when I first visited the Chatham Islands in 2011 and stood at the place that my ancestors had lived and died, they were washed with emotion. This was the question which plagued me in particular. How did they survive? How did they survive a hostile environment to which they were unaccustomed and ill-prepared? How did they survive the brutality of a 17th century British penal system? How did they survive the beatings, the floggings, the rapes, the forced hard labor, malnutrition, and illness that claimed so many of their lives? What beliefs and values did they draw upon to survive in the darkness of their imprisonment? Now, it was in contemplation of this question and others that I came to certain specific cultural understandings of the principles I believe my ancestors utilized to survive their imprisonment, and principles which still have contemporary application and can contribute towards positive change in our lives and in the lives of others.
2021 is an opportunity for us to walk down a new path, an educational path that is inclusive of Indigenous knowledge and practices. So let's plan. Let's plan for 2021 and beyond with the Urban Food Sovereignty Project. This project starts off with 2 years of combining STEM, CCSS, ELA standards, and Indigenous knowledge practices while designing an urban aquaponics farm that will serve their community. Once this center is built, it will serve as a hands-on classroom and working farm to provide food for all the program families. I hope a project that prioritizes sustainable access to healthy food and empowers young people by reminding them of the knowledge and resilience they carry on in themselves is a priority number 1 for SFUSD.